What if I told you that the hardest season of your life is not here to destroy you, but to expose you? Not the version of you that smiles for other people. Not the version that says, "I'm fine," while falling apart inside. Not the version that keeps moving just to avoid feeling. I mean the real you, the tired you, the disappointed you, the you that no longer has the energy to keep pretending. Stay with me until the end, because this may be one of the few times you hear the truth without comfort, without decoration, and without lies. Right now, wherever you are in your life, stop for a second. Not tomorrow. Not when things calm down. Not after one more distraction, one more video, one more excuse. Stop now. Because most people never really stop. They keep scrolling, keep talking, keep filling every quiet space with noise, because silence is dangerous. Silence forces you to feel. Silence forces you to notice what is broken. Silence forces you to meet the self you have been avoiding. And maybe that is exactly why you keep running. But here is what your pain is trying to tell you. Even now, in the middle of confusion, in the middle of loss, in the middle of emotional exhaustion, you are still here. You are still breathing. You are still listening. You are still searching for something true. And that matters. It matters more than you think. Because as long as you are still searching, your life is not over. As long as something inside you still reacts to truth, you have not disappeared. You may be tired, you may be numb, you may be disappointed in yourself, but you are not gone. And there is something else you keep forgetting. Somewhere in this world, there is someone who carries you in their heart. Maybe they do not say it well, maybe they do not show it perfectly, maybe they are far away, but your existence matters more than your darkest thoughts admit. Someone worries about you quietly. Someone hopes you are okay. Someone would feel your absence like a wound. So before you destroy yourself in your own mind, before you decide that you're alone, before you act as if your life has no weight, remember this. Your pain is speaking loudly, but it is not telling the whole truth. Now let's face something deeper. You did not choose the time you were born into. You did not choose many of the things that shaped you. You did not choose the chaos, the family patterns, the disappointments, the betrayals, the emotional hunger, the loneliness, the pressure. But you are still responsible for what you become in response to those things. That is the part many people do not want to hear, because it is easier to worship pain than to transform it. It is easier to build an identity around being wounded than to build a life around becoming honest. But pain does not get the final word. Your response does. Two people can go through the same kind of heartbreak and become completely different. One becomes bitter, closed, and emotionally dangerous. The other becomes clear, wiser, and harder to deceive. Two people can walk through loss. One lets it destroy their spirit. The other lets it strip away their illusions. Same pain, different response. Same fire, different result. So maybe the question is not, why is this happening to me? Maybe the real question is, what is this forcing me to finally see? Because sometimes life does not gently redirect you. Sometimes it tears your plans apart. Sometimes it ruins the future you imagined. Sometimes it removes the person you thought you could not live without. Sometimes it lets the fantasy collapse because the fantasy was keeping you trapped. And when that happens, you call it disaster. You call it punishment. You call it bad luck. But what if it is exposure? What if life is not stealing your future, but destroying the lie you built your future on? That is why growth feels violent. Real growth is not cute. It is not soft music and healing quotes. Real growth feels like confusion. It feels like grief. It feels like standing in the ruins of who you used to be and not knowing who you are without the patterns, the attachments, the masks, the false hopes, and the roles you played to survive. That is why so many people choose familiar misery over honest transformation. Misery is predictable. Truth changes everything. You are not broken, you are being rebuilt. And rebuilding is ugly before it becomes meaningful. It does not feel inspiring in the middle of it. It feels humiliating sometimes. It feels lonely. It feels unfair. It feels like everyone else got a map and you got silence. But what is being built in you now cannot be built in comfort. Strength is not built when life obeys you. Depth is not built when everything goes your way. Clarity is not built by easy seasons. It is built when the illusions fail and you are forced to see what remains. And here is one of the cruelest truths in human life. You almost never understand the value of a moment while you are still inside it. You think there will be more time, more chances, another conversation, another year, another apology, another visit, another moment to say what you meant. Then one day, the door closes, a person changes, a season ends, a version of your life disappears, and suddenly what felt ordinary becomes sacred in memory. That is why your life deserves more presence than you have been giving it. Stop comparing yourself to people who are performing. Stop measuring your inner world against someone else's display. You are comparing your raw reality to edited appearances and then wondering why you feel behind. Behind what? Behind a performance? Behind someone else's mask? The only comparison that has any dignity is this. Are you more honest than you were last year? Are you less willing to betray yourself for acceptance? Are you less addicted to approval? Are you more awake to your own patterns? That is growth, not applause, not validation, not image, truth. And let's be even more honest. You are probably not afraid of change itself. You are afraid of losing what is familiar, even when what is familiar is hurting you. People stay in the dead relationships because pain they know feels safer than uncertainty they do not know. People stay in false identities because pretending is easier than rebuilding. People stay small because being misunderstood feels terrifying. People stay numb because feeling everything at once feels unbearable. But staying where your soul is dying is not safety, it is slow self-abandonment. Now we need to talk about depression, and not the polished version people romanticize online. The real one, the heavy one, the silent one, the one that steals color from the day, the one that makes simple tasks feel enormous, the one that leaves you sitting in a room, staring, unable to explain why everything feels so far away. The one where you do not necessarily want to die, but you are exhausted by being alive the way you are alive now. The one where nothing feels sharp enough to wake you up, yet everything hurts enough to drain you. Here is the hard truth. Depression is not always random. Sometimes it is the collapse that comes after too much self-betrayal. Sometimes it is what happens when you live too long against your own nature. When you keep saying yes while your body is screaming no. When you keep staying where your spirit is shrinking. When you keep pleasing people who would never carry your pain. When you keep performing strength instead of telling the truth. When you keep abandoning your needs, your grief, your anger, your exhaustion, and your boundaries until your inner life can no longer breathe. Depression can become the language of a life that has gone too far away from itself. It can be the weight of unlived truth, the pressure of emotions you buried because they were inconvenient, the cost of pretending that what hurts you does not hurt you, the cost of smiling when you want to disappear, the cost of being functional while internally collapsing. That is why it feels so brutal. It is not always just sadness. Sometimes it is a shutdown, a revolt, a dark refusal from the soul to keep living a lie. And most people do not want to hear that because they want relief without change. They want to feel better while continuing the same patterns that made them sick. They want peace without honesty. They want healing without loss. But some things in your life will not get better until they get truer. Some pain does not lift because it is waiting for a decision, a boundary, a confession, a departure, a surrender, a truth spoken out loud. Sometimes the darkness stays because you are still negotiating with what must end. This does not mean suffering makes you special. It does not mean pain is noble. And it does not mean you should stay in darkness and call it wisdom. It means that if you are going to survive this season, you may need to stop asking only, how do I get rid of this feeling? And start asking, what is this feeling revealing about the life I am living? What is draining me? What am I forcing? What am I pretending not to know? Where am I betraying myself? What truth keeps returning because I refuse to face it? Because sometimes your lowest point is not proof that your life is over. Sometimes it is the point where the false life begins to die. And that death feels terrifying because false things still become familiar. But maybe this is the season where you stop protecting what is killing you. Maybe this is the season where you stop calling survival a life. Maybe this is the season where you finally choose what is true over what is comfortable. So if your life feels like it is falling apart right now, maybe parts of it really are, but maybe they need to. Maybe what is collapsing is not your future, but your illusion. Maybe what is leaving is not your peace, but your numbness. Maybe what feels like loss is actually the beginning of honesty. And honesty is where real life begins. If this video reached something real inside you, subscribe to Soulful Wisdom Journey. Like this video. And in the comments, answer one question. What truth are you finally ready to stop running from? Because your life does not change when everything becomes easier. It changes when you become honest enough to stop living against yourself.